Writeopolis, we're not just gonna kid, it's Writeopolis, we're not just gonna kid, yeah. Welcome to Writeopolis, featuring authors RJ Barker, Scott K. Andrews and Kid Power, and, often, a guest. Writeopolis is recorded live via Discord on alternating Sunday evenings, a conversational show with audience participation, bark on without the BS. Funded entirely through the generosity of our Patreon backers. Patreon.com/Writeopolis Podcast. Writeopolis, we're not just gonna kid, it's Writeopolis, we're not just gonna kid, yeah.
Now recording.
We're recording. It's 8:30. It's the second or third or fourth Sunday in the month, so it must be Writeopolis with me and Kit and our lovely guest Tracy.
Logically, it must be. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
If you can't hear me, say something. Okay, good.
Oh, I've missed that line. And I literally also did miss that line as well. So,
you did literally and metaphorically, yes, and emotionally, but you know, hey.
I did. Is Tracy here yet?
She is here. She was patiently awaiting. I think she needs. Does she need permissions to unmute, or can we just?
Yeah, but I can't see Tracy in the list.
Okay. So she's in the chat, but she's not. Okay, so Tracy needs to join the chat channel. Okay.
Yeah.
We can sort. That's probably the bit of instruction I should have given her, huh?
Yeah. Kit has organised this week's, so you know.
Well, you say organised.
Yeah, well, technically.
I love it. Now, look, we don't even have to say anything. The entire chat are translating our comments into the... this must be what it feels like to be a member of the royal family, wasn't it? Don't you think?
Yeah.
You just sort of spout bollocks and shit happens. It's great.
Yeah, the citizens are there for us.
They are. Our wonderful, wonderful citizens. Our
wonderful citizens. The Writeopolians, as we also call them.
as we never call them.
As we never call. Is Tracy here yet? Has she picked up? No, she isn't. But I'll leave a note in the thing.
Yeah, we'll sort it out. Actually, she's in the... Hang on.
She did say...
Like we were having I was having a text conversation. Okay, let me continue my... Yeah, okay.
While you're doing that...
Talk amongst yourself.
Well, no, I will explain why I put Scott in block capitals in there, because Scott K. Andrews is here tonight. And as you'll know, people of Writeopolis, that me and Kit are engaged in a never-ending battle. And one day, one of us will be proved triumphant and the other will be destroyed. And Scott is the unofficial third voice of Writeopolis that would come in at that point if one of us was destroyed one weekend. And he's here tonight. We might let him in for 10 minutes to speak, even. Don't know. So I don't know if Kit's listening or not.
No, I'm listening. Yeah.
So we might...
I'm always listening, RJ. You know that.
Yeah. I can't get away with anything. It is terrible. It's awful. But so that's Scott is here and he's having patiently waiting for his moment. Yeah. So because Scott is part of...
you've allowed me to unmute.
Oh, have I?
I feel honoured.
Wow.
I haven't.
No, that's really scary.
Yeah.
You see, this is the power I wield.
Yeah, this is in keeping with Writeopolis, that usually the people we want to speak, we can't work out how to get them to.
This is hilarious.
But as evidenced by the fact we can't find Tracy, she did say she was in a meeting, didn't she?
No, she's here. She's in the chat, and I've been talking to her in the... She sent me a DM, which is how I discovered...
Oh, right, I found her now. Hang on, right.
Okay. Is she in the voice chat?
One second, Tracy. I've got to turn her into a fancy guest.
Yeah, and then inevitably when that doesn't work, turn her into me instead. But yeah,
yes.
let's go through the steps. There's a process here. Let's not...
Yeah, I do not have permission. No one ever does that, except for Scott. Scott is here with permission to speak.
Except for Scott, he just came in ran. Clearly, he is like.
Yeah.
It's just.
Try now, Tracy. See if you.
Can you hear me?
Yes!
We can.
Oh my goodness! I'm in.
Tracy.
Brilliant.
Oh my goodness.
This is my first Discord experience. This is terrifying.
Yeah. Just you've started at the bottom. So
Yeah, that's true. The only way is up from here.
yeah. I'll let...
So I was locked out, I was suppressed, I was silenced, but now I'm here.
That's the Writeopolis experience. That's it.
I'll let Kit do your introduction because
Oh,
he's more.
well, yeah, absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to have on Writeopolis Tracy Fahey, who is just, I think, probably just one of my favourite writers working in horror right now. I think that's probably true. Is that true? Yeah, that is actually true. She's a fantastic writer. She's written the works of hers that I'm most familiar with, The Unheimlich Maneuver, which is a short story collection which came out through Sinister Horror Company. It had a previous life with a different publisher, but it's more recently come out with them. And the deluxe edition, Unheimlich Maneuvers in the Dark, which is also fantastic, which had some extra stories added in as a kind of special edition. And her new one came out on Valentine's Day called I Spit You Out. I'm about a third of the way through it at the moment, and it's doing everything I'd expect it to do. It's absolutely flooring me. Tracy writes really... What I love about Tracy's horror is it's got incredible emotional intelligence and resonance, and I think one of the things that Tracy's exceptional at is the evocation of the claustrophobia of the self. And that's something that comes out in her work time and time again in the most exquisite ways. So she's a phenomenal author, and I'm incredibly grateful to have her with us here today. So welcome, Tracy.
And I had a quick peek at Tracy's bio, and she appears to be part of the Goth Massive. So welcome.
So she gets the RJ. She gets the seal of approval from the King of Leeds, RJ.
Yeah. I feel honoured and flattered. Thank you, RJ, for accepting me as part of your tribe. And Kit, thank you for that beautiful intro. I was tempted to try type it up as you were writing, sort of something for my next blurb.
We've recorded it, so it's fine. You can, grab the transcript later. You're welcome.
Kit charges, I believe.
I mean, it's just for me. It's just good to hear you, Tracy, because it's Tracy and I. We see each other at cons, and that's the only time we see each other, and we have these incredible conversations 2 or 3 times a year, but not for the last year or so. So it's good to hear you. It's really good to hear you.
I think the last time, Kit, was a kind of a 2 a.m. conversation in the strange fantasy con in Glasgow, where we were in some kind of horror hospital.
That's right. Quite a long way from the outskirts of Glasgow, if I remember correctly. It was a very odd venue. Yes, that's right.
Do you think it was in Glasgow, sort of in speech marks, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
It was a truly terrifying venue. There was one guy that I saw walking around for the duration of the convention in Superman pajamas, and I just assumed that he was a very eccentric con goer. It was only the last day I realised that he was a hospital resident.
Could have gone either way, to be fair.
It could have gone, but on the last day he had crutches and a nurse with him. So unless he had a particularly exciting con, he was almost definitely resident.
Well, I do wonder if we left with the same number of people we arrived with. I'm not convinced entirely that some people didn't move in.
Someone will have written a book since then based there, because it was the most antiseptic hotel I've ever been in.
That's right, yeah, it was, wasn't it? It was really, yeah.
It wasn't conducive to chat, and we can talk.
That's true. It's got a superpower at this point. Yeah.
We think she's seen weirder con outfits.
Well, I get very discombobulated. I have a terrible, terrible sense of kind of left and right and direction in general. And a few times I found myself wandering through the entrance of what was clearly the emergency wing of the hospital, which was annexed to the hotel.
Yeah.
I'm permanently
Places we could have gone, guys.
And there is always that moment where, like, is this an elaborate cosplay or no?
Should we amble into what media we've been consuming over the past 2 weeks, because after our last guest, who I don't think we shall ever name again after the massive betrayal, he brought up me on both poetry and dinosaurs.
Yes, my favourite guest of all time. Yes, indeed. Yeah. Do carry on.
I went away and watched Robot Overlords, just so I could tell you how terrible it was and have my vengeance. But it was very good, really enjoyable, and even more enjoyable if you were my 10-year-old son, who just loved it. So there's a bit, the odd little adult bit that I had to explain to him, or not, in that kind of adult way you do, or the kissing. And kind of, but apart from that, he was just like, it was perfectly just aimed at him, for him, and he loved every minute of it. I think Mark played a blinder right in that, so it's really good. I might get him the book for his birthday.
Sounds good. I'm trying to think what I've been watching. The family have been watching. They've done the entire Potter series, but I've been using that as an excuse to get some writing done because I don't really like. I stopped watching Order of the Phoenix, and I just have no desire to see the last however many movies that is, 7 I think, or 9 or something. Like, I've just not whatever. So I've been ducking there. I have been ducking WandaVision, although I know I'm going to have to watch that because everyone's just going out. I watched the first episode and I thought I have to be missing something, and it turns out, yes, you were. So that's fine. I'll go back to that at some point. I watched them at Millions.
I'm really enjoying WandaVision, I have to say.
I've heard, everyone's told me, like, stick around for, like, the next, like, episode 3, and it's,
I don't know. I really liked episodes 1 to 3. Now, before somebody spoils it on me, I haven't seen episode 7 yet. But what I really enjoyed about the first 3 episodes, and I'm not going to give away anything, Kit, don't worry, it's just that feeling that something's not right, which is and that kind of suburban, kind of chintzy kind of setting, the whole cheesy sitcom idea. Citing that as a space of unease is genius.
Will it work for someone like me who isn't really that interested in superheroes and not very observant? Because like at the end of the first bit of the second series of The Mandalorian, everyone was very excited because a character turned up on a hill. That I'm not going to say the name in case anybody hasn't seen it, but it begins with Bobber, and everyone was really excited. But to me, I was just a bit confused because there was just some bloke stood on a hill, and I was like, "What? Why is everyone?" And I want to watch WandaVision because I like the look of it, but I have this old feeling I'll just be like, I don't know who any of these people are.
Well, I'm a kind of a traitor to the Marvel universe because as a kid, I used to collect American issues of Spider-Man, and I loved Spider-Man. You know, he was the quintessential kind of nerd outsider who was leading this amazing secret life, and I loved it. But I just got a bit played out with the Marvel universe. I think just the endless succession of movies. So I switched on WandaVision, kind of not. Well, actually, my sister kept talking about it, and I thought she was saying One Division. And I was thinking, does she mean like One Direction? What's she talking about? Because she kept saying One Division. My God, so good, so good. And I had to ask her what it was. And when she explained it, I went, oh okay. Yeah, sure. I'll give it a go. And first episode, I thought, this is intriguing. Second episode, I thought, yeah, I'm there. Third episode, loving it.
Because I'm drawn to just how very odd it seems to be.
It's really odd.
You see, I just love that feeling when the ground beneath you is shifting and nobody's quite defining what's wrong. There's just these little subtle hints and suggestions that something is not only wrong, but seriously wrong.
That's kind of one of the great marks of horror fiction to me, that kind of sense of disquiet. Like, I'm not a gore person because I'm a massive wuss, but I like M.R. James and stuff where you're just feeling quite upset and you're never quite sure why until something horrendous happens or doesn't. And I like that a lot in stuff.
I'm super old-fashioned. I mean, Shirley Jackson continues to be my goddess and my kind of idea of what is most resplendent about the horror canon. You know, I read The Haunting of Hill House the first time on my own in the dark, and there was a certain point in it when I just had to get up and switch on not just the light in my room, but the lights in the entire house. And it's a long time since I've been that creeped out by anything.
The only thing that's ever done that, I've mentioned this before, is William Hope Hodgson's Karnaki stories.
Oh my god, I love The Whistling Room. That's one of my favourite stories.
Yeah, The Whistling Room and The Hog are my two favourite. And I had to sleep with the lights on after those two stories. I was like, no. Not enough people. Everyone goes, oh, Lovecraft. And I'm like, no, actually, William Hope Hodgson's better.
Yeah,
and
not
a racist.
See? It's the tribe.
There
you go.
It's the goth thing.
Yeah, we know. Apart from the end, William Hope Hodgson's, where they just go Scooby Doo, and you just like bit good. So I just pretend they don't exist. Yeah.
I remember finding the Whistling Room because I was researching a lecture on kind of, I don't know, some like strange spaces in Irish Gothic, and I found that and I thought, oh my god, that is a savage story.
There's just something very upsetting about William Hope, and I don't know what it is. I can never put my... And I'm scared to read them again in case it was just me at that moment, but I kind of feel like I should do really.
No, House of the Borderlands still stands up. He was such a lost fiction, I think, was Hope Hodgson, because Mind, quite unlike any other work at the time, I think you could see how it linked to all the stuff going on, but he just seemed to be his own little mad person doing these things. He died, didn't he? World War One. We lost him in World War One. No. Yeah, he's the kind of quiet gentleman of kind of horror. Kind of stands in the background. Oh, don't mind me, just here writing my odd little stories.
We also because the boy has become very interested in murder mysteries. Possibly he and his mother are to blame. Started watching Jonathan Creek from the beginning, and they're brilliant. I haven't watched. Haven't you watched Jonathan Creek? It's worth your time. Do you think?
Me? No, it never really appealed to me. I have to be honest.
Oh no, I think it appeals to me because it's some idiot living in a windmill, which I'd quite like to be.
Yeah, I don't know. I just find I can't remember his name. I just find him a little underwhelming. I've got to be honest.
It's one of those things that's ripe for a reboot, I think.
Okay.
I think it could be done really well because they did a 5th series where they made him an advertising executive, which kind of missed the point. But
wow.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, interesting theory. But yeah, we watched that. I'm trying to think what else we've been watching. You've been writing, haven't you, Kit?
Me? Yes, I have.
He said accusatorily.
Yeah. No, he replied slightly shockedly. Yes, I've been working on the novel edits some more, and I had a really good conversation with my co-author about the remainder of the rewrites, so I know exactly what I'm doing now. I've got my marching orders, and I'm feeling more hopeful than ever that we're going to have a draft with a story editor by March, which is really great news because it will be good to get that moving. And in the meantime, I got My Life in Horror under my belt, which is superb. That's the first time in months I've done that, and we're getting near the end of the run on that series as well, which I think is part of what was causing the delay. But yeah, so I did. I ended up bashing out about 2,500 words about the movie Young Sherlock Holmes, and the permanent damage it did to me as a child. So that was really good. Yeah, it was nice to get back on the horse. And it's, as I say, there's 4 or 5 of those essays left now. So it was good.
I love those essays, Kit.
Thank you, Tracy. Yeah, I did. The blurb you gave me for the first volume is one that I shared far and wide. I was really incredibly proud of that. So yeah, thank you.
I do have you to blame for a very poor night's sleep because it was the first time in a long time that I kind of went, I'll just read one more. Maybe just one more. Oh, the next one looks good. And it was like 3 a.m. and I thought, oh, okay. Seems like tomorrow's going to be a bit of a wipeout.
I consider that my job. I've got to be honest.
I tell you, listeners, it is addictive.
Oh, thank you so much. I do consider that, in all seriousness, I do consider that my job. But I was talking with my kid about this today. We were on our dog walk and we were talking about writing and creativity, and I used the line, I think it's I actually got it from the West Wing originally, but it's like, your job as an artist is to hold the audience's attention for as long as you demand it. And like we were talking about it in the context, so like, and what I was saying in that context was like, a story should be as long as it needs to be and not a single word longer. I mean, that was the context of the conversation. That's my personal philosophy. Like, it shouldn't ever drag. It shouldn't ever be slow. It should always feel, like an enriching experience. And people should always be left. I personally think people should always be left wanting more.
You're never going to make it in fantasy.
Probably not. I think that's probably why I'm drawn more towards horror and crime as genres, maybe, because they are a bit sort of punchier, as But anyway, that's just my thing. I like, but that thing about like holding people's attention, I really like. I think I take that responsibility quite seriously. I really do. So it's nice to hear that it had that impact when you were reading it, Tracy, because that's certainly what I was after. So yeah,
but Kit, even more so, I think we were to open this up as we're talking about how much we miss hearing people's voices. For me, reading My Life in Horror, I can hear your voice. I can hear the Kit powerness shining through.
It's such a strong voice is Kit's in those. I love them, and I don't have the connection to horror that Kit has. I have the connection to Kit, which is why I enjoy them so much. And I just like that. And I think there's a lot of universal experiences that speak to that odd person in the world who's not quite aware of where they fit in a lot of it, that I like, that I identify with a lot.
That's the hope, yeah. I mean, it's definitely written with my fellow misfits very much in mind. Because, the normies have got the world, right? We need each other because we don't have the world.
I do love your whole underlying thesis, Kit, of that kind of, we use horror to make sense of the world. We use horror as this aperture that we could look through to try and kind of see kind of what's going on and make some kind of meaning from it.
Right, and I mean, I think, I feel like that's something very much that I see happening in your work as well. It feels to me like when I talked about earlier when I was describing the thing that you do about the interiority and the kind of the claustrophobia of the self. I mean, it's interesting. There's some of that in the Unheimlich Maneuver, although there's a different focus. But it's definitely what I've seen so far in I Spit You Out, is you seem to be really in this collection.
I'm just going to interrupt for a moment and say I spit myself out.
I spit myself out. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
No. It's just I spit you out sounds a bit rude.
It does. It sounds terrible. Why did I say that? Sorry. God almighty. I'm so sorry. Absolutely everybody. And especially Tracy.
I'm just cackling here.
It's a fantastic title, though.
I spit myself out. Yeah, great.
It's absolute. Just one of those sort of, because it's one of those where you read it and you don't immediately click to it, and then when you finished it, you think, "Hang on."
Well, I did steal it from an essay by Julia Kristeva. So
you were influenced. Influenced. That's what we like to use.
Yeah. It's an homage.
But I guess, Tracy, I mean, the question I wanted to ask was, like, in terms of the writing, how much of it was any of it written during lockdown? Because one of the things that occurs to me is it does. Again, I'm only a few stories in, so maybe but there's certainly a sense of this themes of isolation and claustrophobia do seem to be in there quite a lot.
They tend to creep into my work anyway. But weirdly enough, the only pandemic story in it, which is called The Cure, I actually wrote a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Long before, we were living in this strange world where, I don't know how it is in the UK, but everywhere I drive in Ireland on my few permitted journeys, signs blazoned on the motorway saying, "Stay safe, stay home." So there's kind of a cognitive dissonance that comes with even moving from one place to another anymore. But no, I mean, I wrote most of it pre-pandemic. And then I had a big pause where I actually couldn't write horror during the pandemic, and actually co-wrote a comic Regency-style novel with another writer. And it was literally to cheer ourselves up.
Oh, how lovely!
But I had to actually switch modes. I really wanted to write, but horror, I was just suffering from that kind of cognitive dissonance where you're like, be mentally healthy, because I live by myself. It was like, right, how long will this be before I start, talking to my shoes, I was doing all these kind of lovely, positive things and taking morning walks and admiring the budding trees. And then I'd sit down and try and put myself in the shoes of some absolute wretch who's going through psychological torture. And it just wasn't working. It wasn't working. I had to cheer up before I could write horror. So my editor was extremely patient with me, shall we say. Good Justin Park. He was like, don't rush it. It's fine. And I was crying, going, I can't write. And then all of a sudden, I wrote the last 4 stories. Boom, 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 and it was done.
Oh, okay.
It's really weird with the pandemic. I keep seeing the thing about I've got to think about people who are stuck on their own.
That's me.
Well, I'm thinking, but I'm stuck with my family.
I've been adopted. It was one of the most amazing things about the pandemic. I got to know my next door neighbours, and they are amazing people. And because you won't credit this, but within the pandemic, I came down with shingles. So I had my own little mini pandemic going on where the rules were actually relaxed in the outside world, and I was shut in my house going, damn you all, I've got another form of the virus. Then my neighbours from Beijing remembered that I'd said once that I really loved Asian food, and she started feeding me over the wall like a stray dog. And we're both quite short, and our garden wall's about 6 feet tall. So we were standing on deck chairs and kind of passing food over and empty plates back in this very elaborate kind of tea ceremony. And then we became really good friends. And now we've been allowed to merge with another household. Everything sounds strange these days. So I've merged with them. And now we're all great friends. So there you go. A little happy story of the pandemic.
Because I've seen you post on social media, on Twitter, photos of these amazing dishes of food that they were leaving for you, right?
Yeah. I'm not one of nature's cooks. I am not a domestic goddess. So yes, not only do I receive the food with thanks, but I make sure to photograph it and post it.
Yeah. No, it looked really good. I was looking at it thinking, like, man, I could... Here I am brown bagging it again from the local fish and chip shop. I'm thinking that looks really good.
We should swap
there
houses.
You go. Yeah, but you have to be isolated during a pandemic and then come down with your own little mini pandemic. So... I'm quite glad I got my nervous breakdown out of the way really early in the pandemic. I would say the first 3 weeks, and then it was reasonably plain sailing after that.
That's quite efficient. I dragged mine out for 2 or 3 months, so I think you did pretty well there, all things considered. That's quite impressive.
I'm constantly having conversations with people who are like, yeah, any minute now, gonna crack.
Yeah, there you go.
See, I quite like it. It's just basically give me an excuse to do all the things I want to do anyway, which is stay in and not speak to anybody. So I'm just like, it's not really that different to me. Though I did have my first ever migraine this week, which was an experience I do not intend to go through again if I can work out what causes it. And I can't recommend to anybody either. It's the opposite of fun. So...
Yeah, no, I can't recommend them at all. I think they're a terrible idea.
Yeah, they are. They're rubbish. Absolutely useless. What is it you're writing at the moment? And Tracy, if you've just finished one book, are you straight into your next project, or do you take a break and sit around and enjoy the food?
No. breaks are what happen when you have writer's block. They're going to happen organically anyway, So, no, but seriously, when I'm working on a project, I have at least 1 or 2 in the pipeline. So, because I mostly write short fiction, like I'm always writing stories, and I'm kind of a strange combination of chaos and extreme order. So my Dropbox is pristine, like it's the most meticulous filing cabinet in the world. All my stories go into different potential future collections. My kitchen drawers, on the other hand, are absolute chaos. So I think I've got it in the right order. Keep the writing neat, everything else, we'll make it up as we go along. But yeah, I've got 2 further collections I'm working on. I'm co-writing a screenplay, which is exciting and terrifying. Mostly terrifying because at the same time I'm reading Save the Cat, which is a great introduction to screenwriting, because I thought, okay, I have nonchalantly agreed to co-write a screenplay. What is a screenplay?
There must be something in the water, because I know a lot of writers who seem to be writing screenplays at the moment. It must be something was swept over us. And
I think we're amazing optimists because all the cinemas are closed.
Yeah, it does feel a little perverse, doesn't it?
I am writing in a form which may or may not exist in the future. How gothic is that?
So I've tried it and it leaves me, and I've written scripts in the past, but it leaves me, I don't seem to be able to kind of engage with it in the same way I can engage with prose, where I can just kind of slot into it and suddenly I'm gone for an hour and I'm writing. But with any form of just dialogue, it's just kind of, I want to put in the between bits and it really annoys me and I end up just sort of scudding to a halt very slowly.
But you see, I'm writing with somebody who's very experienced screenwriter, but it's based on one of my short stories. So at the moment we're still at the beat sheet phase, which is a term I did not know. about a month or so ago, now I'm throwing it out so nonchalantly. Oh, we all know what that is. But because the beat sheet is just a kind of a descriptor of what's happening, I'm very comfortable working with that small universe, which was in your short story, suddenly expand and flesh out about what the characters are thinking and feeling and their backstories. Yeah, it's a real experience. I expect that once we get to the stage of writing dialogue, I'll be crying and eating biscuits, which is my normal reaction to block.
It's interesting. I wrote a script for a play literally as a teenager as part of a theatre course that I was on. So I've co-authored one play and that's it. But I wonder about it because I think that part of me thinks I visualize things in quite a cinematic way a lot of the time when I'm writing my fiction. Certainly the novel was very cinematic. Like I visualized what was happening the whole way through the story. And a lot of my novellas work in similar ways. I think A Song for the End.
Yes, absolutely.
I could see it as, it would work as a film, I think. It would work as a TV miniseries maybe. But I've never even approached a screenplay. I've never even kind of seriously considered it. So
maybe me and you should write a screenplay, Kit.
Yeah, maybe.
That's what we should do, and we can totally disagree about that. I don't think I could ever. I think I'd be the worst person to work with on anything.
We just argue about everything endlessly.
Yeah. I think it would be an amazing project because it would be a fantasy universe, but things keep going horribly wrong when kids.
That's true.
And then there's blood and death. A straight man in a mask. Yeah. No, it's great. I think you should do it. I'm just giving you all your cues.
There you go. That's the beat sheet written. Yeah. All we got to do is...
Fiddles has run with beat sheet and brought the tone down in the text. Well done, fella.
Yeah. Thanks for not letting us know. I was contemplating making a joke about how I thought I knew what a beat sheet was, but clearly I was mistaken, and I thought, no, don't bring that. Not after I spit you out. You can't do that.
Scott, who is in the text, and he's got a film out at the moment.
Scott's got a film out?
Yeah, a film from his books is out.
No way.
Yeah.
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 I didn't write it, though.
He's back again.
You finished your chips, Scott?
I have finished my chips, yes.
Good.
I'm taking a break before I do some running and welding. Yeah, I didn't write the film, though. It was adapted from the book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, Tracy, meet Scott, who's our third wheel.
I'm apparently really good at eating chips silently.
Oh yes. Well, I'm currently sequestered in a Premier Inn, having a Netflix and long baths holiday, exclusively catered by Deliveroo. So, I was scarfing down chips.
One of the things that I'm really one of the things that the lockdown has made me really miss is Holiday Inns. I'm really missing it, and as soon as it's done, I'm gonna just go on a tour of England, visiting bookshops if they want me or not. I'm just gonna start turning up. Just go here. I'm getting some of my books in, even if you haven't. I'll bring some because I kind of quite miss that weirdness of conventions and pretending to be Alan Partridge.
I have become Alan Partridge.
That's less good.
Now
what happened then?
recording.
Yeah, Craig dropped out and came back. I'm arguing with the robot again. That's Casey's. Just don't worry about it. Don't worry about Craig. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Everything's fine.
I was just gonna bob into because the text thing, and weirdly, I was interviewed by Tim Clare this week, and he asked me about my text.
There you go.
He didn't use your words, so I informed him they were copyrighted. Do you want to explain to Tracy about the concept?
Yeah, and you know what? I'm excited because
with?
Tracy, we've never had this conversation either, so this is good. So the idea is that, it's sort of semi-prompted by My Life in Horror, really, but the texts are the novel, the album or piece of music, and the film that had that seismic impact on you as a kid and made you want to be a creator or sent you in the creative direction that you're now going in, or had that kind of blowing the doors off effect. You know, what was that piece? And so I don't know. Yeah, if you want to talk to us about that would be great.
Okay, this is where I'm going to sound like a lesser known Bronte sister, but I grew up in rural Ireland on a bog. We had no TV. So, my whole knowledge of pop culture from the period that I was allegedly a child is absolutely non-existent. So, like any good Bronte, I grew up with my brother and sister. Who there was no other kids for like a very long kind of radius around. So I was completely obsessed with Robin Hood, Norse gods, King Arthur, Knights of the Round Table. So my childhood was basically spent forcing my siblings to play along in minor roles. And when we got sick of that, I started scripting plays, and we would perform a play at Halloween. I swear to God, I'm making none of this stuff up. I remember one particular one was called The Ring, and it was about a cursed ring which was found in a shop that mysteriously disappeared the next day. And it gave wishes, but all the wishes turned out wrong. And it was a masterpiece. I wrote it, I directed it, I was in the lead role. I could not trust my brother and sister to memorise much or even to sustain an interest in the production, even when it was in progress. So my sister was more reliable, so she would get the secondary character. So you had to write these scripts very carefully. And then my brother, who was very young and with a very short attention span, had to be minor characters like old woman in shop, you know. And but the worst thing about it was that my mother would consistently break the fourth wall by shouting things like, "They're my good sheets." So yeah, back in the 1880s when I grew up, things was different. No, but seriously, loved reading. And it was a combination of that and my grandmother's folk tales, which kind of really resurrected this interest in kind of, I suppose, dark narratives, because hers were terribly chilling because they were quite often based on kind of echoes of real life stories, but there were also stories of the banshee and, you know, the devil, but they were all based in really familiar locales. So she'd say, oh yeah, that was just down the road now, or what happened to Mrs. Carney? You know Mrs. Carney now. I always see her at Mass, you know. So it had this really, really kind of mundane side to these horrific stories.
Do you think, to some degree, we've kind of lost? Because you mentioned Robin Hood and King Arthur.
Yeah.
And Dick Turpin was one I had as well. I loved all of those, but my son's 10, and theirs don't seem to have even come onto his radar. I had to explain who Robin Hood was to him a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, I think it was because my grandmother bequeathed us a bunch of kind of musty old classics when I was pretty young, and I would literally read anything, you know. I actually still do. I read a very wide range of different subjects. I'm a very Catholic kind of and quite uncritical reader sometimes. But I think, RJ, I worked my way through a lot of those classics at kind of a young age when I didn't have maybe a lot of other books around. But Robin Hood was my passion. I spent a childhood making bows and arrows, which didn't fire very well. Because they were made of string and dead branch.
I'd make those, and you'd fire your arrow and it would just fall in front of your feet. And you just have to pretend that it went a long way and it was okay.
Yeah, well, in my inner monologue, it always kind of was going a lot better than it really was. But actually, a trade-off, I tried archery a couple of years ago. And it was that kind of thing, oh, I used to love this. And my God, I was amazing at it. It was like one of those dreams you have where, you know, you kind of nonchalantly skate up out onto the ice and you're pirouetting and turning figures of 8 or whatever you do on ice. But yeah, I was hitting bullseyes. It was amazing. The only time in my life, because I'm very uncoordinated, that I've ever, you know, picked up something and been good at it. But I think it was, you know, solid years of woodcraft, you know, making wonky bows and terrible arrows.
I always find Robin Hood such a weird one. Like, it's so he's such an anarchic figure, and his politics are so the opposite of the mainstream, and kind of, you know, like, the guys are, I don't know how else to describe Robin Hood, like, as he's a socialist revolutionary, right? Like, it's a corrupt state and an oppressive regime, and he literally steals money from rich people and gives it to poor people. It's like, how did we get this national? It's such a weird one. It's so, like, Arthur, I get, right? King Arthur really does hit a bunch of, like, you know, cohesive societal norms that you'd want as a mythology for, like, Englishness. Robin Hood, man, comes out of left field, and there's nothing else like him, and yet he's widely celebrated. I think he's an absolutely fascinating national myth.
Dick Turpin as well.
Yeah, but he's less rob from the rich and give to the poor, and more just rob from the rich and keep it, which is like
capitalist Robin Hood.
Exactly, that's not quite the same thing.
They're on about the fox. You can't mention Robin Hood without people talking about the sexy fox.
I actually love Robin of Sherwood. That was a great series.
Oh, what, the 80s, the kids show?
Yeah, with kind of the one with Michael Praed, and it had really kind of pagan overtones, like appearances by Herne the Hunter, and it seemed to me that scriptwriters were really informed by kind of pagan mythologies.
That had a massive effect on me, did Herne the Hunter, and seeing with his antlers. I am still obsessed with
that. Was that your antler urtext, RJ?
It is my antler urtext. That Clanad and a man in the mist with some antlers. That's what I want when I go to the woods, and I'm always let down.
Which is why you're a goth.
Yeah.
Due to my 1880s upbringing, it wasn't until I owned it on box set that I was able to fully relish it.
Yeah, my memories of it are fond, but I have to say very hazy indeed. I haven't engaged with it since as a child, but I have fond memories of watching it as a kid. Certainly. Was it young Ray Winston? Fiddles is asking. No idea. Did it have a young Ray Winston in it? Is that right?
I think so. I think he was one of the Merry Men.
Yeah. I imagine he was Little John. He'd be a good little... Or maybe Will Scarlet, actually, because he's a bit of a scamp, isn't he, Ray Winston?
He'd have made a good Will Scarlet.
Yeah. And Will Scarlet's a bit of a scamp.
He was Will Scarlet.
He was Will Scarlet. Perfect.
We could do with Scott here just as the voice of facts.
Yeah, just the fact checker.
I can tell you the name of every actor in that show. I've got them all on Blu-ray here on my shelf, and I'm currently rewatching them. It's amazing.
Oh, well, there you go.
See, I'm frightened I'd find it slow if I went back to it. Because I'm quite easily bored now. Child of the 80s, so that is Will Scarlet as a thug.
Well, if you look at it now, the effects are a bit wobbly and the scenery is kind of visibly moving, in some parts. But, despite those, it still has that kind of oddly creepy feel about it. Recommended.
There's a lot of... I think it's why I loved The Woods when I was young, was his totally Robin Hood. He went from blonde to dark-haired, or dark-haired to blonde, and that really confused me.
Dark to blonde, because Jason Connery took over and it wasn't the same.
Yeah, and I didn't approve of that.
That was said with great feeling.
Yeah. I consider Robin Hood somewhat of a pet subject.
Right.
I feel
everyone agrees with you.
If somebody's been critical, it's like, don't diss the Hood.
Yeah, absolutely.
I tell you what, Tracy, they recently released... it was on one of the Doctor Who Blu-rays of the animated reconstructions of the old Doctor Who's that are lost, and on it was a 5-minute sequence from a 1950s live episode of Robin Hood with Patrick Troughton as Robin Hood. It's one of the earliest existing pieces of old British telly, and it was amazing to watch this version of Robin Hood that was done for telly, and it's clearly a bunch of people standing in front of a cloth painted like a forest. But it's amazing.
One of them's Patrick Troughton, for God's sakes. I mean, that must be amazing.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
He's not. He doesn't spring to mind immediately as a sort of leading man in that kind of athletic.
Well, this was when he was. This was in the 50s before he. Yeah, he was still a young man at that point. But yeah,
I can't imagine Patrick Troughton as a young man. My imagination just fails at that. It's just not.
Well, that makes it worth seeking out almost by itself, doesn't it? Just like, what could that even look like?
Yeah.
What about music, Tracy? Is there music as well in your Victorian upbringing, or was it just like harpsichord renditions with your sisters?
More like comb and paper. We come from an intensely musical family, but my father married out to a tone-deaf woman. And it was not a musical family. We had no gatherings by the piano in the evening. No, at the age of 14, RJ, I was given an Afghan cassette tape of The Head and the Door by The Cure, and that was it. I never looked back.
Because we always talk about that there's a moment of music where you just say, whoa.
Yeah, it was like, I didn't think it could sound like this.
There it is. That's the one, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember first hearing I think I heard Disintegration first, and it was just like, what is this?
I went to see them on the Disintegration tour, and I wept unabashedly as they came out on stage.
Oh, I'd love to meet Robert Smith, because he just seems like he's lovely.
Yeah, he seems so sweet.
Yeah.
I have met Lol Tolhurst, though. I worked with him on his book tour. And he's a gent.
Didn't they all fall out? They don't speak to each other anymore, do they?
No, they've actually reconciled now.
Okay.
But yeah, Lol left due to like kind of really bad addiction problems. And it was kind of an acrimonious parting of the ways, but he's actually joined them on I think the Australian tour that they did a few years ago, and everybody's reconciled now. But he wrote a lovely book called Cured, which is a tale of two imaginary boys about their kind of early days, and it's a real. Have you read it, RJ?
No, I've not, and I really like musical biographies. I'm just about to start reading, excuse my French, "Fucked by Rock," which is the biography of Zodiac Mind Warp.
Oh my god!
Wow, that'll be a read.
Yeah, well, the last musical biography I read was Mark Lanigan's biography, which I recommend everybody reads because he absolutely does not hold back on the fact that he is an absolutely horrendous human being that you would not want to go anywhere near at any stage in his life. Even now, he seems to have come out of addiction. He still just seems to be terrible. And I think I need a musical biography that might be an antidote for all these horrible ones I've recently been reading. So, what was it? Cured? Was it? Did you say?
Yeah, there's some Cured by Lal Talher. So some lovely anecdotes, like when they were all babies, just starting out and kind of crawly, and how they had one leather jacket that they used to pass between them, like for photo shoots. so they would take turns of being the cool one. Very sweet. But actually, speaking of music biographies, I think the greatest one I've ever read and will ever read is probably Bill Drummond's 45. Because the man is a genius and a madman, and the lengths to which he will go to make work is truly astounding.
Talking of music, it seems like a good idea to spring on Kit the bit of Writeopolis where I ask for a song to add to the Writeopolis playlist, which always Kit never expects.
Are we still doing this? I wasn't prepared.
Yeah. It's and Bruce Springsteen is of course banned now.
I know.
Because
I
otherwise,
think you're going to have to ban the Black Crows as well, because that's the other band I've been listening to on a loop for the last 2 weeks.
Okay. Well, I'll ban it from next week. But it gives Tracy a bit of time to think of her song. So, what are you going to go for this week?
It's gonna. Well, if I'm allowed Black Crows this week, I'm having the Black Crows because it's all I've been listening to. Let's go with the classic from Southern Harmony Musical Companion, which is arguably their kind of greatest album. And let's go with, this is going to be on the playlist, right? Let's go with No Speak No Slave then, because it's the liveliest song on the album. It's got a bit of a kick to it, and it's probably my favourite Black Crows tune. And I was listening to a bootleg of Shepherd's Bush Empire, which is a show I was actually at about 10 years ago, and they opened with it. And I remember being in the audience, and there was a bit of if I can describe it, a bit of a herbal atmosphere. I think you'll know what I mean. But I distinctly remember them coming on stage and opening with my favourite of their songs at the beginning of a 3-hour set, and just feeling somewhat euphoric. Let's put it like that.
You still stayed? You didn't just leave then?
No, God, no. I wanted to stay. No, because then I knew I had they were going to play like the 25-minute version of Thorn in Your Pride in half an hour, and it was just going to be amazing. No, it was a great night. I can almost remember. So,
I knew what I was going to go for, but unfortunately, some exciting news I had has been delayed. So I can't go for that anymore. Well, I can, but I can't explain. So I'm going to choose a song by a band called Dead Cuts, which is called Single, because it fits with the kind of gothic theme of tonight. And you've probably never heard of Dead Cuts because I'm so cool. But I only heard of them. I only heard of them by accident through Jason Arnold.
They like their early work.
There is only going to be early work, sadly. Because it's. Do you remember the Senseless Things?
Which what?
The Senseless Things, sort of late.
It rings a bell.
Yeah, they were kind of like a cooler Wonder stuff. And a band I never got into, but their singer Mark Heads died recently. I think not of drugs, but I think it was related. But his last band were called the Dead Cuts, and when I heard that, I went and listened to what he was doing last, and it's absolutely fantastic. So he was doing some really good stuff and taken from us too soon, as a lot of people who dallied with music are. So that's what I'm choosing. Because that was a bit grim, wasn't it? So I should choose a happier one, but it's Goth Night.
Too
Goth
late
Night,
now.
Writeopolis. Yeah, I've brought the tone right down. Trace.
I'm gonna cheer us all up. I've been listening to Lana Del Rey, specifically, oh God, on Born to Die. Thank you. Which, because I discovered her really late, and I think, do you know what it is? I think WandaVision spurred me into listening to her again, because there's something about her voice and the kind of soundscapes that she creates that makes me think of just that really nostalgic kind of old Hollywood vibe, slightly seedy and washed up and melancholic. Anyway, I'm loving it at the moment.
Oh, I'll have to find a song for you. I'll send it to you via Twitter, Tracy. 'Cause if you like Lana Del Rey and that kind of seedy Hollywood thing, it's called Hollywood Cemetery, but I can't remember the
that's
artist that sings
amazing.
it.
Cemeteries are my favourite thing.
Oh, it's fantastic. I suspect it's about sex in Hollywood Cemetery, but it just kind of sounds like this dirge, and it's wonderful. And you'll either get that, you'll either think, yes.
I kind of don't even need to hear it. I'm just sold on the description. I'm there.
I'm going to, well, Kit, say something exciting while I'm trying to find it on YouTube.
Say something exciting. I don't know about that. I mean, Tracy, thank you so much for coming to talk to us, though. That's the main thing I want to say. It's just, I've missed talking to you. It's really nice to catch up.
I know. And usually, Kit, our conversations are in things like kind of doorways where we're awkwardly balancing stuff that we're bringing back to somebody else's table, or we're both going to different panels. But we end up having this very, very gripping conversation about life and horror, meaning and writing.
I still think about, I'm going to assume it's a private conversation unless you're comfortable sharing it, but there's a conversation we had a couple of years ago, I think at maybe the Peterborough StokerCon, not StokerCon, FCon. I still think about that chat from time to time.
It was about standing in the corridor.
Yeah, and we were just talking about, in the vaguest possible terms, wellness and writing, but I remember that, genuinely, I still come back to that conversation we had. That was really valuable, so, yeah.
I think that at cons, because, it's that amazing thing when a bunch of introverts who sit on their own writing weird stuff all meet each other and they feel incredibly normal and accepted and loved. So we can talk about the very odd things we think about. And people are going, yes, I think that too,
Yeah.
Which is an experience we don't have in our everyday lives.
I think that's right, and it's that thing of reconnecting with the tribe of misfits, isn't it? It's that reconnecting with your people and just feeling like, oh, okay, yes, I can. I don't have to wear the mask all weekend. I can. I don't have to pretend not to be this strange human.
And I think perhaps as well, because so many of us are writing horror, that we're thinking a lot about things like anxiety, the condition of the world, because those are the furrows that we continue to plough in our own minds as we're kind of coming up with ideas, as we're refining them. So some very honest and very dark conversations are had.
Yeah, but I think
horror is a vent. Like a pressure valve for what's going on in your head.
Well, that's an interesting question. I think for me, I've talked on the show before about how I think of horror. Writing horror is clearly part of the function for me is therapeutic, and I can't fully articulate what or how, because I don't always feel better for having written something bad, or at least not immediately. But there's something in the impulse. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's something about, for me, maybe it's as simple initially as just expressing something that I might feel scared even to say out loud. Do you know what I mean? Like expressing a fear of the state of the world that's sufficiently dark. There's a thing that King says in our writing where he says, you can write about anything as long as you're honest. And the one thing I will tell you is that if you become a writer, you are done with polite society. And you do have to accept that. If you're going to write honestly, you're done with polite society. And I think that I kind of take that seriously. But I think that the flip side of that is there's stuff you wouldn't maybe talk about, but you can write about it.
Yeah,
and maybe writing's maybe the only place you can really get under the skin of some of the stuff that's really getting to you. I don't know.
I think, I know that we've discussed Stephen King before. He says a lot of wise things about horror in general, and he talks about, in the introduction to Danse Macabre, he talks about this idea that true horror is everyday horror, and that's a kind of a credo of mine. It's like, true horror is being ill, watching someone you love being ill, bereavement, losing your job, that's where horror actually resides. And horror, in a large extent, is kind of giving people something else to look at to distract them. So it's, and then you've got that notion of catharsis as well, that we mimic, that our bodies mimic all this kind of emotion and upheaval and resolution comes, and there's a certain ease that actually kind of comes with that.
I agree with that, and I think a safety too. I think fiction is maybe the ultimate safe space. Paradoxically with horror fiction, even though it's safe because it's unsafe, but it's safe because it's fiction. So actually any unspeakable thing could happen, and you've got to deal with it, but you're dealing with it in this abstracted form that somehow renders it safe, even though it also chills, disgusts, terrifies, whatever else it does.
I think we also write out our anxieties. For me, horror becomes a place where I can, kind of put my ideas about, as I was saying, mundane horror. Kind of horror that occurs in the home when someone you love turns out to be not the person that they seem. Like, for me, I just keep going back to that notion. And the deepest horror of all, for me, is identity. What happens when our own identity starts to dissipate or crumble? I think I could write for the rest of my life and just revisit that theme in different ways.
I mean, that last one's interesting, Tracy, because that's something I'm actually too scared to write about that. That's one of those that is so fundamental to the core of me that I keep having ideas, and actually I keep shying away from them, because that one is that's like the deepest well for me, maybe. The notion that you can't trust your own mind.
Man, it is terrifying.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of seminal movies, 1987, Angel Heart. Near the end of that movie, where Harry Angel is shouting, "I know who I am!" That was the spine-tingling movie moment, by the way.
Okay.
I'm going to write it down. I always forget about Angel Heart, and then somebody remembers who says it, and I remember how much it scared me. It's just creepy. It's Deep South, isn't it, Angel Heart?
Yeah, and it's got all the cliches and everything, but young Mickey Rourke is wonderful in it. Very understated performance, but it's just, for me, what I kept going back to, and that was that moment when he's crying and shouting, "I know who I am," and it becomes painfully obvious that he doesn't. Psychological moment. Yeah, that was it. But that's that. I think. Thank you for helping me locate where I got my main theme from, guys.
I did as well, though. I wanted to come back just briefly on something else you said, because you were talking about, when you were talking about themes you engage with, and as I said, I'm only partway through. I spit myself out by them, but the story that I just finished reading, I'm just trying to look up the title now because I don't want to get it wrong. But it was, but there was a story in there that was about, in part at least, it was about the horror of aging and the aging process.
Oh, yeah, that's my perimenopausal story.
yes. And that was just breathtakingly, achingly brilliant. I mean, I've just, that one floored me. Because it's like, I mean, it's interesting. It is a woman's story, and it's told from a female perspective, and it engages with that. But I have to tell you, reading it as a man in his 40s, it resonated very powerfully indeed with me. Like it really, like it resonates way beyond, like, I'm not, again, I don't want to, like, it is about what it's about, and it's very powerful to that, but it does speak to wider kind of things as well. And I was just superb. I just really enjoyed that. Really, really kind of, I really had to sit with it afterwards. You know what I mean? I just was like, okay, wow. So, yeah.
Oh, Kit, that's so nice. And I know we're such a weird breed. When somebody goes, oh, yeah, kind of knocked me for 6, we're like, oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, you really fucked up my evening. Oh, great. Yeah.
I'm so happy. But actually, are we allowed to be momentarily serious?
Yes.
Go on.
But only momentarily.
Okay, I'll speak very quickly, so with slightly comedic effect then. But I actually really wanted to write that story because it's so weird, and I've discussed this with other kind of female horror writers. We're all like, there's a bunch of us that are all pretty much the same age, and we're in that kind of interesting liminal stage of life that's technically called perimenopause, which nobody tells you about. I think I was in the middle of it before I realised, what? Oh, okay. Wow. Okay, so 51% of the people on the planet go through this, and nobody thought to tell me beforehand. So it's just this period of transition where your body's just starting to change. It's like puberty in reverse, except for you're less cute, But it is this weird feeling because, I guess, kind of through social conditioning, there is this sense that women start to disappear. Like coming like kind of mid to late 40s. Oh, they're starting to fade out a little. I can't see them so clearly. It must be the fog of hormones, And I know I'm being slightly jokey about this, but yeah, there is that feeling that in another era, women became very disposable and invisible. So I really wanted to write a story that kind of stemmed from being in that liminal phase of life, but to actually voice it. Makes sense? And that's my serious bit down now.
No, I mean, what you reminded me of, there's a description. I'm pretty sure Ian Fleming will have used it at some point in one of his Bond novels, but there's a ton of horrendous men behind him, male authors who would have used similar phrases. But it's a phrase that, when I read it, it makes me want to throttle the author immediately. And it's that it's often aimed at middle-aged women. It will say something like, you could see echoes of the beauty she must have once been. And you just think like, okay, you need to fuck off to the end of the world. And when you get there, jump the fuck off. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just, but it's and it is that, it's exactly what you're talking about, right? And that's, I mean, obviously that's really kind of, there's all kinds of problems with that. It's very male gazy and all that kind of shit. Like it betrays an entire pathology, doesn't it? With one sentence, you're like, okay, you're a human being that has very serious issues and needs very serious help. But it speaks to that. But that's not an individual pathology. That was a social pathology. That's a societal pathology to a degree, I think.
As a society, like, we spend our whole lives trying to thrust away any notion of death, unless you're a goth, of course. But
present company accepted.
Exactly, yeah. Kit, you're outnumbered on this occasion. No, but there is this weird thing where if you just looked at magazine racks, except for the, kind of grittier kind of side maybe, but you would think that we were a nation of immortals, of kind of youths, because everybody's, it's like what's on the outside is important, and I think it's partly because we live in a world with crumbling healthcare systems where people don't actually want to think about getting older. They don't want to think about their bodies starting to malfunction. So as a result, we've pushed away death, we've pushed away aging, we've got industries aimed at trying to reverse these very natural processes. And then you look at kind of other societies where wisdom is revered and, village elders are a thing and people bring them gifts and, it's like, oh, tell us, wise one, you who have lived long and had much experience. And it's really quite a sad reflection on how we prize older people now.
I'm always quite taken by the Mexican idea of the Day of the Dead, where you have this day where you get out the pictures of all your ancestors that have died. And you have them in the room, you talk to them, and you sort of put stuff out for them. And I like that. I like the idea of remembrance and sort of the idea that, they're still very much real to us. They're part of us. And I think that's probably why my house is full of dead things. As anyone who's seen the pictures of this.
I think that's great because it's like a memento mori, but also that spirit of connecting to the past. Like in my other life, I actually run death cafes with a friend who's a psychotherapist and a thanatologist, and kind of we run them with artists. And I don't know if you've heard of the death cafe movement, but it's basically a safe social space where people can come together and acknowledge that life is finite. It's really fun. The first rule is there has to be cake. The second is there has to be hot, nourishing drinks. Both are free. But you do all these like kind of fun exercises like, bucket lists and I don't want to say the F word, but effort lists as well. So it's kind of like, if our lives are finite, why are we putting up with this stuff? If life is finite, why don't we do the things we really want to do? So they're very quirky. They're really, really popular as well. The first two we hosted at space for 60 people and 120 showed up. So people were sitting like in the arms of each other's chairs, talking animatedly about death and colouring in sugar skulls. It was wonderful.
I love that idea. I'd quite like to do one of that. But I'm just...
Well, perhaps when the plague is over, you can actually find one because there are plenty in the UK.
Oh. I'm just making notes here because one day I'm going to get to write the foreword for one of Kit's books, I'm sure, and I'm going to refer to him. I'm going to say when I first met Kit, I could see the beauty he must once have been.
Oh, that's good, Kit chuckle.
I've got some terrible news for you, RJ. I recently saw some photos from when I was a teenager. I was never beautiful. It wasn't a thing.
To me, though, Kit, to me, you're beautiful.
Okay, no, I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, yeah, okay, yes. I accept the compliment. That's fine.
Because I've had that migraine, I can't wear my glasses at the moment. It's really weird. It's the oddest thing. It's properly knocked me for 6 weeks, so I'm a bit quiet tonight. Sorry, everybody. But I'm having to occasionally pick up my computer and read what the people are saying. So if I'm not involving them very much tonight...
Oh, I'm sorry. There's a lot of... I'll do a quick recap. There's a lot of people... You should have said. I could have taken over reading duties. That's apologies, everybody. There's a lot of talk about food. Interesting. We're continuing the biscuits and gravy US, UK, that whole conversational thing. That's someone talked about fly pie. I'm just going to pretend that didn't happen because that sounds wrong. And let's have a look. And there was approval of cake as a rule, which I think yes. Oh, cake or death, says Ruth, which I think kind of sums it up very nicely there. Yeah, and several comments agreeing with the kind of the general thrust of the. I mean, Fiddle's made a nice comment there. This is talking about going back to the thing about aging and the invisibility of women in middle age. It's one of those things which underlines how much of the world still revolves around what men feel we can use and what we feel is useless, as if a whole living person belongs anywhere remotely near the sort of consideration given to a fucking spanner, which yes, absolutely, Fiddles. There you go.
There are some spanners who get far too much attention as well.
Yes, of both the human and tool variety.
Yeah.
I have to say, earlier, there was an absolute ton of love for Shell.
This is my first time in Discord, so I'm discovering all the functions as we speak in real time.
There was probably already know more than me and Kit.
Yeah, that's true. You're probably... There was an awful lot of love for Robin and Sherwood earlier as well, just to make that clear. There was a ton of love for that, so that was great.
Excellent. I feel that my work here is done, guys. I brought Robin Hood back again to the public consciousness.
It's weird because my next big fantasy project I've pitched as Robin Hood with Squid.
Nice.
That's
already reading it.
Yeah. It probably won't be recognisable as Robin Hood, but that's what I'd say.
Just put a bow and arrow in it and a bit of Lincoln Green and you're good.
Yeah, I was thinking about trees that actually reach the sky was my starting point. Robin Hood, he'd have a great time with them.
A Lincoln Green squid.
Fiddles has gone somewhere slightly different. Fiddles is saying Sherwood Forest is gentrified and now serves calamari, which I'm not sure if that's what you were going for or not, RJ. But...
not quite my working class utopia. I was hoping to bring to life.
Although I like the idea of Robin Hood as an anti-gentrification crusader. Actually, I think that could work quite well potentially.
Oh gosh!
Get out of here with your lumberjack shirts and your
exactly.
Hair one side. Get those beards out of my face.
£3.50 for a latte on your bike.
on your large penny farthing, sir.
Yeah.
With your typewriter under your arm.
Slink away in shame. Yeah.
Come on, I miss hipsters. I miss coffee shops. I miss everything.
I wouldn't go that far, Tracy. I got to be honest. You've one up me at that point. I don't think I miss hipsters. I do miss coffee though. I do miss coffee in a coffee bar. Yeah.
I've seen a lot less beards because of lockdown.
Right.
I've seen a lot less people. So therefore, a lot less
beards. We've run over time.
We have.
I've only noticed because I'm holding the computer. We're at 10 to. No, we're at 17 minutes past time. So
we've
definitely
you to Tracy. Comfortably run over.
Yeah. Thank you for being wonderful hosts. I was kind of waiting at the back of my mind for they'll probably start the serious stuff any moment now, but.
Tracy, we've met. Come on, you surely knew better than that.
Can I disclose something now at the end? I have attended a workshop you ran, RJ. You and that young gentleman, Lee Harrison, at Edgeland. And
he's
it was
terror.
It was on the hero's journey, and you made us sing it to the tune of the final countdown. Yes, they did.
Yes.
And I'm now working in my real job with a team who are writing a master's in Jungian kind of art and psyche. They keep talking about Joseph Campbell, and every time they do, I just think of Joey Tempest, Poodle Karen. I'm being forced to sing the hero's journey to the tune of the final countdown. So thank you. Thank you for having an impact in my life.
That is the greatest moment of my life so far.
RJ, I always knew you were a monster, but I have to say, even I am just a little shocked by this revelation.
Yeah.
I don't know quite. I'm torn between horror and admiration. I feel both in equal measures right now.
I love the final countdown. So you have to sort of confront these things head on.
Kit, I was at that workshop with Andy Freudenberg, and we were together singing the final countdown awkwardly, not meeting each other's eye.
That's hilarious. I can picture that so clearly. Andy must have loved that. That's fantastic.
Every
my
workshop
God.
I've ever run, my entire feeling all the way through is always, why are these people going along with this?
It just shows where terrible events happen in history, doesn't it?
There you go. Who needed the Stanford experiment? Half an hour in an RJ workshop, and you understand exactly how it all happened.
It was broken in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, it sounds it. Yeah.
This was the prologue to the workshop. I don't mean it was an entire workshop on kind of orchestrating sound to Europe's classics, but no, that was the beginning. That was the beginning.
Have I told you how I end up doing workshops, Kit?
No.
My publicity officer, Nazia, kind of gets in touch with me and says, what sort of things are you happy to do? And I'll say, I'm doing this. And what sort of things would you be very uncomfortable with? Well, telling people what to do, I'm not good at that. I don't want to do like teaching people and stuff. So she immediately books about 10 workshops for me to do because she thinks it's funny.
Well, she's, look, in her defense, she's clearly right. It clearly is funny. So
Actually, RJ, she does that because I pay her in sweets to do it.
Well, it's been a night of revelations, has it not, ladies and gentlemen?
That's where we should have the EastEnders.
That's it. That was the duff right there.
Yeah, that was it. We are people on the way to getting a theme tune as well. So if we're quick on it next time, something like that, we'll just be the theme tune.
Don't still flashbacks.
Oh my goodness.
Do you want to quickly just tell people about your books and tell them to go and buy them, Tracy, or if you're not that comfortable with capitalism, just mention your books and me and Kit will tell them to go buy them.
Well, you can go to my website, www.tracyfahey.com, and find all my books there and links to buy them. And my new book is called I Spit Myself Out. Please read it.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Can I love you? Please, come on.
God.
You know I'm teasing. I just outed RJ's workshop and I told you I love you. So,
That's true.
That's true. These things.
No, fair enough. And seriously, go by Tracy's work. It's phenomenal. It really is. It's fantastic work. It's the Unheilig Maneuver it's just a stunning collection, and so far the new one is indifferently but equally brilliant. So yeah, absolutely, please go do that because she's fantastic.
Yeah, and in a rare bit of organisation, we have our guest already set up for next Writeopolis.
What?
And yeah.
Well, that means they're going to drop out, obviously, because
or not turn up. But,
yeah, that's true.
He's a chap called Mark Catley, who you've probably not heard of, but you will have He's probably the most successful writer I know or have come across, and works tremendously hard and has 2 BAFTAs, so bit of a star.
We've got we have a BAFTA winner on the show. That would be amazing.
Yeah, double BAFTA winner. Double
Very
BAFTA
cool.
winner. Yeah, and he's also the person who kind of, I feel, is a bit to blame for me.
Wow. Well, there's a cliffhanger right there.
Yeah, he's going to have a lot to answer for. Kit's going to get in on him on that.
Yeah, I'm going to be quite cross with this gentleman. Expect a very pointed cross-examination. Emphasis on the cross.
Yeah. But yeah, you've been lovely, Tracy. You've been amazing. We've told people about your books, haven't we? Honestly, I've never had a migraine. It was kind of scoured my head. It's been a bit weird. But I don't have a headache now, so I'm happy. And Writeopolians, you've been lovely. And Scott, we should quickly. Scott, we should.
Yes, Scott. Thank you for coming in and scotting at such short notice. That was wonderful. It's good to hear you.
Do you want to just tell people a bit about yourself, Scott?
Well, it only took the complete destruction of my entire personal life and me hiding in the Premier Inn to finally be able to make it on a Sunday night. But I should be able to do it from now on, because that personal life ain't getting put back together anytime soon. So,
well, in that case, we might make it a three-hander.
Yeah.
that would be nice. That would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm locked in a Premier Inn, eating delivery food, working my way through the complete Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes, and I've just started watching Jiri Haji, RJ, because you recommended it to me. And I'm 3 episodes into that, which is amazing.
Just wait till you... This isn't spoiling in any way. The end will blow your mind.
Yeah. And
in a way you totally do not expect and cannot expect. It's just astounding.
Yeah, I'm really, really enjoying it. And I'm reading a memoir by someone called Josie George, which is A Still Life, which is really, really good. And yeah, that's what I'm doing. And looking at lovely things on Twitter about the film, which is going down well. And this is the
you
first.
Want to just tell us a bit about your film?
It's called School's Out Forever. It's got Anthony Head in it, which is amazing.
Wow!
I know.
Awesome.
I can't believe it. It came out on the 15th. It's available on video on demand and all that, like iTunes or Sky or Amazon Prime or whatever. It's really, really, really violent. I'm in it, which is funny, but only at the end in an author's cameo kind of way. If they make a sequel, I've demanded that I get to kill someone. But yeah, I've had almost no interaction with the outside world pretty much throughout most of lockdown, and there's been all these online things going on that I've not been able to be part of, and this is actually the first one I've actually properly made it along to. So it's been really nice, and Tracy, it was really nice to virtually meet you and chat with people on the chat and talk to you, RJ and Kit, because it's lonely here in this Premier Inn. I get to make. I've started to like make small talk with the delivery guys, and they just look at me like really awkwardly and crab backwards into the car.
I mean, don't take it personally that they're paid by the delivery is the problem, right? It's not their fault. They too are victims of capitalism. But yeah, I mean, unfortunate all round.
Yeah.
The thing to do is just order 2 deliveries. Then they can stay a bit longer. Have a bit of a chat.
Yeah, order them, from the same place subsequently, so I get the same rider twice, and when they pull up, I can just greet them with, as I was saying.
What could possibly go wrong?
and that's how I ended up wearing the chips.
Oh, sorry. After listening placidly, I was suddenly struck by an idea. Premier Inns, they're always where people go for cons, right? Because they're cheap and cheerful. I remember having a late night con conversation once where everybody was staying at various Premier Inns. I think it was, and we were saying, we should get Premier Inns to sponsor cons, because you know the way that kind of thing of we promise you a good night's sleep. So we're saying, we could have that. We promise you a horrific night's sleep, riddled with nightmares. Sponsored. So there you go. I know you might not be looking for a sponsor for Writeopolis, but this is my final gift to you before I go.
What a beautiful gift it is.
Oh, perfect.
I am now bowing on my way out. Thank you all so much.
Oh my gosh, it's nearly 10 o'clock.
It is. We should go. But Tracy Fahey, everybody. I mean, my goodness.
Yay.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much.
Kit is sat in his freezing writing garret.
I am.
With the guinea pigs.
Yeah, with the rabbits.
Rabbits.
Guinea
they're very
pigs.
similar. Rodents.
Bloody rodents. They're rabbits. They're
rabbits are
beautiful, fluffy animals. How many times have you read Watership Down and you're asking me if rabbits are rodents?
Are you dissing rats?
You dissing rabbits? I mean, what's going on here?
No, I'm just saying rabbits are beautiful, fluffy animals in a kind of but rodents aren't way.
Katie Tree in the chat has got my back. Rabbits aren't rodents. Definitely not. There you go. End of argument.
I read an article this week about the making of the Teletubbies, and apparently
are they rodents?
Well, apparently the rabbits that you see in Teletubbies are giant rabbits. They got like the largest breed of rabbit they could get to make the Teletubbies look smaller.
Nice.
And they kept ruining the show because they were constantly at it. Because they're rabbits.
Oh my god!
Any given day on Teletubbies, scenes would take 5 or 6 takes because there'd always be these giant rabbits having it away in the background or foreground.
That's kind of ruined Teletubbies for me.
It's made it for me. I don't know what you. I see it in a whole new light now.
Is Tracy gone?
Yeah, I think so. I know.
No. Did you actually tell me the title of the Lana Del Rey song?
Oh, good God.
I
didn't even pick one. I have to pick one very quickly. Summertime Sadness.
Summertime Sadness. There we go.
Oh my God, I'm glad I stayed on. I was so fascinated by the Teletubbies rabbit rodent.
I feel like
I'd actually taken out one earbud, and then I was like, no, I'll just put it back in and listen. This could be fodder for a short story.
I feel like I'm learning so much tonight. I wasn't expecting to learn. All in the last 20 minutes.
I genuinely didn't know that rabbits weren't rodents. That's kind of wow.
There you go.
Yeah.
No, they were once included with them, but are now considered to be in a separate order, according to Katie Tree, who is my new favourite human being.
Yeah, she knows her rabbits.
Because she knows her rabbits.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Alicia has mentioned the 70s film Night of the Lepus, which is a giant rabbit movie. Is that the one that had William Shatner in it?
The only reason I know anything about that movie at all is because footage from it is intercut in one of my favourite movies of all time, Natural Born Killers. At one point, for no reason at all, in the middle of Natural Born Killers, there's a giant rabbit menacing a farmhouse because Oliver Stone was so high on cocaine at that point in his life, and he had all the money in the world and nobody could stop him. So he did it. And I just, oh God, I love that film so much. I love that film so much. Sorry. And back in the room. All right.
Unlikely Murderous Animals is one of my favourite weird trends that happened. You
can blame it all on James Herbert, because in 1974 the rats made sense, but before you know it, you've got crabs, you've got slugs, and then you've got fucking rabbits, like rabbits. But big rabbits, dude, big rabbits. Okay. Give him a couple of million, see what he can do.
And I remember everyone being obsessed with Razorback, which was a pig.
Yeah.
An Australian pig that ate people.
There you go.
I do remember that.
Yeah. It's just in my head.
On that bombshell.
Dum, 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 dum.
Still think we should have ended with the workshop revelation.
I'm never getting over it. That's for damn sure.
No, it was all Lee's fault anyway.
It was all the fault of the person who's not here to defend himself. There's a shocker.
Yeah,
right.
I'll get him to come on one week and admit it.
Well, citizens of Writeopolis, thank you so much. Again, Tracy, thank you. Absolute joy. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, anytime you want to talk, just let me know.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, guys, and good night.
All right. Good night, Tracy. It's been lovely. Right? You're going to stop the bot kit.
I'm going to tell Craig to stop recording. So that's it. Bye, everybody.
Evening all.
Bye, Kit. Bye, Scott.
Thanks for listening. Writeopolis records alternating Sundays via Discord. To take part in future shows, visit patreon.com/Writeopolis podcast to find our server details. You can also support the show there in return for Discord perks and early access. If you enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, and spread the word. Thanks again. Writeopolis, 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 we're not just gonna kid it. Writeopolis, 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 we're not just gonna kid, yeah.